Hi, everyone. My name is Zoe. I'm a campaign manager here at Birchal, and thank you for joining us for Medigrowth's Investor Q&A today. Before we kick off this webinar, I would very much like to just start by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land which Birchal is based on, which is the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay our respects to their elders past, present, and emerging. These webinars or investor Q&A sessions are a fantastic opportunity to learn so much more about the company that you are showing some interest in investing in. So today you have the opportunity to hear directly from the founders of Medigrowth Australia, Adam and Todd, and I'll be handing over to them very shortly. I'll also just give a bit of an introduction into what crowdsourced funding is for anyone who may be new to that for the first time. And Adam and Todd will give a presentation on the business, and we'll try and leave a lot of time at the end for answering all your questions. There is a Q&A box here on Zoom where you can submit your questions to the founders. So please go ahead and do that at any time, and also feel free to upvote. That's how I'll be prioritizing all the questions that we get to today. So the most upvoted ones will be thrown to the founders first. Now, very quickly, I'll just talk about what crowdsourced funding is, if anyone is new or familiar to it. So Adam, would you mind changing the slide, please? Thanks. So Birchal is a financial service or crowdfunding intermediary. And we have a financial license, and we're heavily governed by ASIC. And all the companies who do hold crowdfunding raises on Birchal undergo quite a lot of due diligence from Birchal, and they have to do a lot of work to kind of make sure that their offer document and the whole crowdfunding campaign is in line with regulation. So both investors and the companies themselves are being looked after and operating within the guidelines that ASIC has set out for this kind of investing and fundraising. Next slide, please. Thank you. So Birchal is a really great opportunity, or crowdfunding in general is a really great opportunity to invest in companies like never before. We've got a really new and exciting business today in a very burgeoning industry that, is an opportunity to invest at quite a low cost. And yeah, as I mentioned, we are regulated by ASIC. Birchal's been around for almost 5 years now, so we are very well versed and we're the leader in this space. And yeah, it's just an exciting time and there's a lot to learn. And I want to talk you through just a little bit about the process that we're in right now with this particular campaign. So Adam, if you could. Thank you. Next one, we'll skip that one. Thank you. So yeah, there's a few things to be aware of, which is currently we're in an expression of interest phase, which means that people can make a Birchal account and let us know that they're interested in investing in Medigrowth Australia and how much they might be wanting to invest. It's a really great opportunity to get an idea about how much a company can raise, and it gives us a lot of information and data, and also just the opportunity gives founders opportunities to engage with potential investors in their company going forward. And the offer is when you actually have the opportunity to go ahead and make your investment in the company. It's also an opportunity to go through a really important document called the offer document, which lets you see the state of the business, what the terms of the offer are, what the use of funds is being outlined for, and you get to also see the financial position that the company is in. And just very quickly, Birchal has a lot of resources which helps people understand what crowdsourced funding is more and what type of investment you're purchasing. But one of the most common questions that we get in investor Q&A sessions like this is, how do I get a return on my investment? And this is not what people, this is not similar to how you might be familiar with investing, maybe through the ASX. So we do encourage investors to do their due diligence and learn a lot about the company they're investing in and what they're purchasing, because it's a bit difficult to sell the shares that you have purchased through crowdsourced funding. And usually you are investing in early stage or growing companies. So their mission is usually to grow their business above and beyond and reinvest any earnings or profits back into the business to continue growing. But the outcome or benefit of investing like this is that a lot of these companies do have ambitions to either just, give their shareholders dividends, or maybe plan an exit or an IPO or an acquisition or some other way of having the company purchased, which results in usually shareholders also being paid out. So I definitely encourage you to go through the important documents that will be on offer when Medigrowth holds their offer on the 1st of August. So that's a lot of talking from me. Thank you for listening. And I'll pass it over to Adam and Todd now to present.
Thanks so much, Zoe, and thanks so much for everybody joining us today. We genuinely have been overwhelmed with the response that we've had from the expressions of interest, and it's a real testament to the belief in the plant that we're dealing with and the mission that Medigrowth has to establish ourselves as really a leader in Australia and a business with global ambitions. So it's great to be here, and we're certainly looking forward to working through our presentation and any of the questions that you may have. So what is Medigrowth? Who are we? Medigrowth is really looking to reimagine medicine through innovation, collaboration, and world-class research. And we've put a lot of things in place to ensure that those things are in motion and build a lot of stakeholder engagement and collaborations and partnerships to ensure that we can move through and to the very best of our abilities, ensure that we can really deliver on our mission. And our mission is very much about patients, empowering patients and bringing medicines to patients that can ultimately change lives and ultimately really improve the quality of life for so many patients, both here in Australia and globally, who have unmet medical needs. And we believe that medicinal cannabis is vastly underutilised and really does have a legitimate place in modern medicine. So part of that mission for us is really the development of TGA registered medicines. And that's something that we have multiple pillars of our business working on, both existing distribution, but also some IP development and clinical trials as we work through those ambitions for TGA registered medicines. You're looking at the two gents of the founding team. I'm Adam Guskich. Todd and I founded Medigrowth originally in very late 2017. So we can humbly call ourselves veterans of the Australian cannabis industry now, given that it was only legalised in 2016. And really have been on an incredible journey of building our company within an industry that's really been evolving and growing during that same time. So my passion is absolutely resolute in terms of the way I see our business having a legitimate place here in Australia. And I know Todd feels the same, and we've certainly spent now the past 5 odd years really building a position that we believe is highly investable and can make a tangible difference for patients. And I'll let Todd make some intros as well.
Hi there, everyone. Thanks for joining. Todd McClellan, co-founder, as Adam said, for Medigrowth Australia. I'm a Canadian expat. I moved to Australia in 1998, so I've now spent more of my life on the blue marble in Australia than I did in Canada. But back home, there is a large network of people who have been involved in the cannabis industry for 20 odd years now. So we really do lean on the experience and passion of those people. The passion for the plant for myself, I'm a patient. I've been a patient for a number of years now, and a number of my family members have also benefited from the plant. It changes people's lives. And I think it's really important for everyone to realize that feeling good about feeling well is okay. And medicinal cannabis is a way forward with that. Thanks, Todd.
You certainly talking to two very passionate guys about the market, the opportunity, and I guess the plant that's the inspiration for the very industry that we're in. Beyond that passion sits a very powerful commercial and market opportunity that's recognised globally. And I think that was one of the messages that I really wanted to drive home in our conversations today, is really, yes, we are an Australian-owned, a proudly Australian-owned company dealing with Australian medicinal cannabis and products, but we have global ambitions, and there is a global market there already established all over the world in terms of medicinal cannabis, but also for more pharmaceutical-based cannabinoid medicines. And I think if you look at some of those numbers, like the one on the right there, there's been projections, in varying sort of amounts of dollars, but it's certainly a multi-billion-dollar industry across a wide range of countries. There's 60 plus countries globally with a medicinal cannabis framework, and that's a growing number. I think it's, again, testament to the fact that more and more legislators are recognising the legitimacy of cannabis as a medicine. And equally, as part of that, more and more legitimate avenues are opening up for clinical work and a legitimised pathway for medicines. And that's really where we are trying to channel our energy for Medigrowth to ensure that we can be part of that multi-billion-dollar global industry. And if you look at the treatment applications, I think somewhere in the deck coming up, there's 200 odd indications that have been approved by the TGA. So the market opportunities are immense across a wide range of different indications. Todd and I have been doing our very best to reach out to many potential investors that have expressed interest. And if you're one of those people who hasn't spoken to us yet, we are certainly trying. We've been, as I said earlier, overwhelmed by the amount of people we're talking to. But part of the conversations is really to educate some of you guys and potential investors on really what drives Medigrowth and how we're looking to build a global business. And the simple way to look at that is really looking at the two direct pillars of Medigrowth as an operation. And we have an operational pillar, the revenue generating side of the business. Again, it's been a very recurring question that I've had in some of my conversations. Are you operational? Are you in revenue? And absolutely we are. We have products in market. We have a very strong growing revenue base, 30% as an average monthly revenue growth over the past 12 months, and a host of distribution channels that we're really targeting and tailoring our products to ensure that we get that brand equity in market that we're proving is happening from patients and GPs and medical professionals. So really, in terms of the revenue generation, we have products that are being distributed directly from Medigrowth, from our Melbourne-based distribution centre. We have third-party and independent distributors that are purchasing our medicines and dealing with their own networks and healthcare networks for cannabis medicines. And we've recently initiated our telehealth platform, Haiku Health, which is really was based on a real patient need for seamless, direct and digital access to experts in cannabis medicine. So many of those things have come into play in the last year after a huge amount of work to initiate a distribution channel that's now growing very rapidly and equally growing quite organically, which I think is important based on really looking at a lot of those repeat orders and loyalty from customers and prescribers tells us that the products are very well respected. Sort of interconnected to that world is the slide or the position on the right there, the research and IP generation aspect of the business, which is really that longer term, bigger picture play. How do we take Medigrowth from a very strong and sustainable revenue producing business now and put it on the global stage? And that's really with collaboration, with clinical work, and really working towards leveraging some of the experts that are here in the country for translational research, clinical trials, and taking all of that legitimate data that's irrefutable if we've got positive clinical trial results, and working towards registering medicines, which then really changes the face of how we can operate within this business. So we've got a very strong relationship with Deakin University. In fact, a clinical trial on paediatric autism that's already up and operational with that collaboration utilising Medigrowth CBD. And a number of other partnerships, collaborations, the Biomedical Analysis ARC Training Centre, is a very important one. We're involved as a key cannabinoid company in terms of bioprospecting cannabinoids against human cells, and some incredible med tech and high technology screening implementation there to look at cannabinoid medicines and how they might be able to be used on a whole host of disease cells. So things like that really transition us into the biotech world beyond the straight medicinal cannabis world, I think is very important to note. Things like the hemp CRC, again, just driving home our support of Australian initiatives and support of research endeavours that can really start to drive momentum in cannabis as a legitimate medicine. And finally, down the bottom there, the Medigrowth Centre of Excellence that some folks may have seen recently proposed down for the Warren Ponds area as part of the Deakin University collaboration, already fully licensed by the Office of Drug Control, and really future-proofing the way we look to operate over the coming years. I've touched on the national distribution. As I said, all of our products currently are Australian-grown flower and Australian-made medicinal cannabis oils, branded under Medigrowth for the oils and Haiku for the flower range. Australian pharmaceutical grade qualities, and for us that was always very important to ensure that from day one anything that we're selling into market really is the highest quality, and in the case of the oils, AU GMP pharmaceutical grade, and likewise the flower Aussie grown and Australian GMP in terms of its quality. All of those products are working through a host of either clinical trial or observational trial initiatives, and are being sold through pharmacy, clinics, those third-party distributors, and our telehealth network. And that's really led to quite amazing growth for us in particularly the last 12 months. We've had products in market for approximately 18 months, but the last 12 months we've seen quite amazing growth, and it's been organic growth primarily, and really starting to see a number of independent organisations reaching out. I think our brand equity and our voice for an Aussie supplier and a respected research-led supplier is really coming to its own. 30% average monthly revenue growth. And that is important because as organic growth, we've really only started to touch the surface of what we can achieve, or what we believe we can achieve. When you look at what's happening in the market, the Australian market is really growing exponentially. There's 200 plus indications that have been approved by the TGA. I think close to 1 million odd approvals through the TGA for those 200 plus indications since legalisation. And importantly, more and more doctors coming on board, which is very important to note. You know, if you look at that stat there of 9,000 odd percent, I think it's over 9,000% of doctors since legalisation becoming authorised prescribers. There's a huge growth rate in the last couple of years of doctors really embracing medicinal cannabis, but importantly, still a very low number of total Australian doctors. Approximately 5% odd of Aussie doctors fall into that category, which again tells us that the growth opportunity is quite immense as more and more doctors learn more, are upskilling, potentially become authorised prescribers, and start to deal with more patients that have that medicinal cannabis therapeutic outcome. Haiku Health, we were very excited to launch. This is the Medigrowth telehealth platform, and really for us was a necessity. We were finding that we were talking to patients very regularly, started probably with our own personal network and quickly evolved into inquiries, Medigrowth website inquiries from patients who really wanted more information and access to GPs who were educated in the space. Often some of those patients would have talked to their own GPs. Some of those GPs would be knowledgeable in cannabis prescribing, and others weren't. For those that weren't, those patients were a little confused about what the next steps were. So Haiku Health was launched in the first half of this year. It's a seamless digital transaction for patients to ensure that they have really 365 days a year consults with an authorised prescriber who is very knowledgeable in the space within normally a couple of hours, and aligned very much to our clinical initiatives with a national longitudinal or observational trial that's really plugged into that network, again, via the collaboration from Deakin University. So we're very proud to have launched that and already seeing quite good traction in relatively early days. Real-world data capture, a couple of the example flyers there that go out with Medigrowth prescriptions, very, very important for us as a company in the early stages of the education piece for doctors and medical professionals, because this is really informing potential future clinical trials. We're finding that if patients take the opportunity to opt in as a participant, it's a fully HREC approved, human research ethics approved, independent from Medigrowth in terms of its data management, but allows really a clinical team at Deakin to analyse which medicines are being prescribed, for what indications and what sort of quality of life outcomes those patients are having, which is very, very powerful for, I guess, broadly speaking, for the prescribing community, and for internally for Medigrowth. It gives us the opportunity to really look at how we can tailor some of that information to start to target more dedicated clinical trial work. Just briefly on the collaborations, from inception, we've been very, very focused on our recognition of the fact that Medigrowth as a global business has to work with some of the best people in Australia. And we've worked very, very hard to bring in a whole host of collaborations, partnerships and oversight to ensure that the clinical work that we're doing is inspiring in terms of what we're looking to achieve. And probably the key collaboration relationship has been Deakin University, which has led to then a whole host of other university and connections to things like NTP Connect and the University of WA ARC Training Centre that we're involved in, and a host of government and regulatory bodies, although not collaborations, certainly to be recognised over the course of our journey, given the fact that there's a huge amount of regulatory oversight in the industry. So for us, we've certainly proven our ability to work within a highly regulated industry, and I think that will only serve us very well moving forward as we target more clinical trials and more registered medicine campaigns. Part of those collaborations is a skill set, as I say, that we're very humbled to be working with some of the people on this page and others that have joined us along the journey that are now really quite involved in the relationship with Medigrowth, including, for example, Professor Peter Endicott there, who's the lead from the School of Psychology, running the clinical trial on paediatric autism, amongst some other amazing people that we're working with. And it gives Medigrowth really a fully independent and arm's length opportunity to be dealing with some incredible skill sets from, pharmaceutical product development, plant science, biotechnology, but importantly, right down to the bottom point there on commercialisation, which is the intent of all of these projects. Yes, they are potentially very life-changing for patients, and if we can sort of push forward and make ground in the pursuits that we're looking to achieve, I think the commercialisation will quickly follow. The clinical trial on paediatric autism, again, is something that we're very proud to be involved in. It's a very topical condition in terms of its pervasiveness in society, and quite a difficult indication to live with for a lot of kids. You know, their autism spectrum disorder is a spectrum where there can be very low functioning and equally quite high functioning. But for those in the low functioning end of autism, that can be a very challenging position to be living with from both the patient's perspective and the family members. So we're very excited about what our phase 1 and 2 trials, again in collaboration with Deakin, may lead to. Already we've had some very positive feedback just in terms of over recruitment, for example, huge amount of interest in being involved in the trial. And we're now only really a few months away from having some more serious data on what the outcome of those trials have been, with some interim results due in October of 23 this year. So yeah, very excited to be working on that initiative. And again, it probably speaks back to some of the experience we're seeing on our existing distribution, where we are having very good patient feedback on behavioural issues for people or kids with autism and ADHD and anxiety and a host of things that are very aligned to this study. So already we believe there's a very good case in point for obviously the very reason that we're doing the clinical trial. Again, more clinical work, advanced oncology care. We're very or progressing protocols in development of our next clinical trial work. So with interest in oncology care and mental health would be the main two that are in the pipeline. The oncology care is investigating anorexia and cachexia. Cancer patients, 80% of cancer patients will develop over the course of their treatment cachexia, which is a muscle wasting syndrome and can be very detrimental to physical well-being, but also treatment outcomes for patients, traditional treatment outcomes that is being utilised by the patient at that time. So it's a huge issue globally, and it's something, again, that we know medicinal cannabis is used regularly within Australian hospital settings for oncology patients. So it was a natural progression to work within some of those fields. I did touch on the ARC Training Centre earlier, led by the Uni of WA. I think the important part about this is really looking at, again, some of the leveraged partnerships that we can deal with and how they can really drive Medigrowth forward. We're involved. There's a whole host of pursuits within that training centre. Our specific pursuit is the cannabinoid bioprospecting, which really speeds up preclinical work, is the simple way to look at how that works. It's a very complex process in terms of the way the researchers are working on the bioprospecting and human cell line investigation. However, looking at some of the industry partners, there are some incredible imaging and life sciences and medtech companies that really add some weight to our ability to move through and trying to take our preclinical work to the next stage. Again, coming back to the global market and looking beyond, often people, certainly in many of my conversations on the phone, often people look at medicinal cannabis and the market as what's happening in North America, for example, on a broader medicinal cannabis or a broader cannabis industry sales opportunity. We're trying to look at both our distribution sales as a revenue engine room for really funding a lot of the next stages of our development, and looking at a macro level of some of these disorders that have huge global potential and certainly huge potential for greater good, and obviously an Australian market base. In most cases, obviously the Aussie market is dwarfed by the States, for example, or the European markets. But all of those are markets that we should sort of have a close look at as we progress. The Centre of Excellence, again, there's been plenty of press on the development there for the Centre of Excellence. Really, that's a collaborative research and commercial opportunity as part of the the Deakin collaboration. based down in regional Victoria, and a way for us to future-proof our operations as we build revenue, as we start to see clinical trial results. We see that development really as something that will enable Medigrowth to not only have commercial operations, but bring in a whole host of both national and international research opportunities as well. And I'm conscious of time here, Zoe. Yell out if we're starting to get shorter. We do want to open up plenty of time on questions. So plenty of great things in the pipeline in terms of the way that we're looking at utilising the funds as part of this capital raise. Really, it's all about expanding the distribution, ramping up the revenue and building a great team, and really just continuing along what we're doing currently and expanding all of those things to continue building the business. And really, let's, I think, why are we here? We're here because we're believers in the plan. We've got a whole host of supporters here listening today. So let's build that genuine Australian success story together, and we would genuinely love to have everyone on board. So thanks so much for listening.
Great. We got some really good questions coming through at the moment. And just want to let everyone know that if we don't get to answer your question, we'll definitely be able to pull your names and questions out of Zoom today and try and get back to you individually. There is also a send message function on the Birchal platform if you make an expression of interest. So you can email the company with any further questions you have going forward after this too. So I'm just going to get cracking, and I'll just throw it to the floor, and Todd and Adam, you can figure out who wants to take what. Well, the first question is quite a few questions actually from Rowan. So I'll just kind of ask it in sections as we go, but Rowan's saying that we have seen the rise and subsequent fall of cannabis and CBD companies in the US over the last 2 to 3 years. How will this work differently? So yeah, that's the first question. I'll let you answer that.
I'm happy to hop onto that one. Thanks, Rowan, for your question. I absolutely agree. I think the rise and fall as the illicit market moved over to a funded capacity market, certainly in Canada and a majority of North America, it created a false industry, and one that was chasing the more money you've got, the better it's going to do. What we believe is the opportunity that Australia offers is being under that TGA framework and offering a pharmaceutical avenue to research and develop and create medicines is the way to really capitalize on the opportunity. From my perspective, certainly in Canada, the medical market that was created was one that was a little bit of a Trojan horse for adult use. And by pursuing that, it bypassed the opportunity to be able to do research and development and to be able to create medicines and really get that safety and efficacy data that we're pursuing, for instance, in the autism trial. So the difference, I believe, in the global opportunity that Medigrowth pursues is in registered medicines, and that's where we'll differentiate from those other opportunities in North America. Cool.
Rowan's also asked 2 other additional good questions, which is in terms of exit, or if there's an exit, is your goal to be acquired or listed on the stock market, or are you able to talk about your goals a little bit more? Just letting everyone know also that this will all be outlined in the offer document that's available when Medigrowth Australia opens its offer on the 1st of August. But yeah, feel free to talk to that briefly.
Look, I think the answer to that is yes, potentially we do have interest in listing. We see opportunities for really growing the business to the next phase as a global player. And the acquisition opportunities are certainly out there for companies that have registerable IP, registered medicines, and novel product development, for example. So even this morning, I read an article for an Israeli medical device development company in the cannabinoid industry. A multinational has looked to acquire that company for $650 million. Part of that investment in that particular company was $120 million for a registration or looking to register that particular medical device, and then the remaining investment to come in if and when that registration comes through. So the overriding theme there is that, yes, there are multinationals out there that will acquire IP and licensable products from companies in this space.
Thanks, Adam. And then I'll just ask one last question for Rowan, and we'll give everyone else a chance. But are your sales primarily coming from authorized prescribers or individuals? And I guess that's an opportunity to just kind of explain the whole function of Haiku Health.
Yes, so those sales currently are being supported by SASB category or by authorized prescribers. So those are doctors who sit in their clinics and prescribe through their existing patient networks. We also have Haiku Health, so that digital seamless home delivery of prescriptions is something that's being delivered by authorized prescribers. So those are experienced cannabis prescribers who understand the mechanisms, the products, and some of the indications that are best treated with medicinal cannabis.
Cool, thank you. This is from John, and John's asked, in regards to global growth, how do you see Medigrowth differentiating itself to provide a competitive edge, particularly in more established and highly competitive international markets? And then John also just followed on saying, similarly, with the rapid and expanding growth in the Australian market, what differentiates Medigrowth from existing competitors? Sorry if that was a bit long.
No, not at all. Look, the competitive edge, I think the reality is that it doesn't matter what industry people pursue, there's always competition. For us here in Australia, I think we've got probably a leading edge in terms of being one of the few countries that's actually really globally recognised for its medtech and export opportunity of medical advancement. So we're working within that gold seal environment where we're highly respected in terms of our oversight from the TGA. There's a recognition of our GMP status for European countries, for example. So I think that allows us really to, Israel would probably be the other country that I would suggest is on par in terms of their R&D in the cannabinoid space. But for us, we're really in a position where even compared to the US, which is traditionally a country that has huge amounts of R&D going into medicine development and R&D, has been very limited by its federal illegality of cannabis, which is still federally illegal in that part of the world. So there's been a real hurdle for some of those places that might have traditionally had a head start. And I think Australia is now in a position where we're actually in probably one of the best regions of the world to really be leveraging those skill sets that we've got on board, and we're looking to really leverage those relationships and work with those people that have a real hunger for the academia and the commercialization beyond that. And for the growth in the Oz market, I think that's an amazing opportunity for Medigrowth, because whilst we're pursuing that global growth and that opportunity for registered medicines, which is a pathway that takes time and resources, it's not an overnight platform to get to a registered medicine. It is something that in most cases does take several years, really, for most companies to achieve those things. The Australian market is actually now really coming into its own in terms of the current pathways, as Todd mentioned, the authorised prescriber and special access scheme. Those markets are allowing patients to, if they're legitimate patients, they can easily access medicinal cannabis. So the growth trajectory for the Aussie market to fund some of the bigger picture plays for us, we believe, is very, very exciting.
Thanks. Natasha's asked, how secure is your supply chain? Do you have your own farming/growing facilities, or do you source from others? And are they capable of supporting growth?
So it is a secure supply chain. Currently, we're utilizing Australian manufactured and Australian grown product. There is capability to scale, and as Adam just mentioned, the Australian market is very quickly scaling on its uptake, with a number nearing 1 million patients being prescribed product across the board, across Australian, authorised prescribers and special access scheme patients. So to answer the question, it is secure, it is scalable, and we are not cultivating ourselves currently.
Thank you. Trudy's asked, apparently Coles and Woolies are in on the cannabis industry here in Australia. How will you compete with these big corporations?
The Coles and Woolies are probably certainly are selling hemp products, so hemp food products, hemp oils, and a host of hemp-derived products, different to the scheduled and prescription medicines that we deal in. Coles and Woolies, I mean, there's the parent companies and or subsidiaries of some of those bigger Australian national groups that do have pharmaceutical wholesale arrangements, for example. So I guess that's to be viewed at very favourably, because they're companies that are interested in the space that we're in and are positioning, potentially for, for example, national chemist alliances and those sorts of things, I believe, are being put in place to ensure that companies like ours can distribute and work within the current regulations.
Thanks. Question from Sean. And Sean, the financial, oh God, I'm having a blank. Financial health of the business will be available in the offer document for you to look at. But Adam and Todd, we've been using this incredible growth figure to promote this investment opportunity. And Sean's asking if you can quantify the month-on-month growth in terms of dollars. But that will also be information that's available in the offer document when the offer goes live too. But I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, sorry. Look, I think the month-on-month growth is very, very much attributed to the organic growth of what we're doing. And I think for us, that's the overriding messaging to say, where are we now, and what can we do with the use of funds? So really, that month-on-month growth, it's approximately 30-odd%. It's given us the opportunity to have really a stable revenue base for the past 12 months. And that's based on a relatively small SKU line. So it's 3 products that we have in market at the moment, two oils and an Australian grown flower. I think the opportunity to extrapolate out and say, where do we go from here? With additional products and additional resources, we believe we can quickly accelerate well beyond that.
Cool. And yeah, the growth will be spoken to much more when we open up the terms of the offer as well. This one's from Mara. Do you anticipate the legislation of recreational cannabis products, and has that been factored into the anticipated? Okay, so do you think that legalization of recreational cannabis will happen soon, and has that been factored into the growth of the anticipated growth of the company?
This is a great question, and one that we've fielded a lot of questions on the investor calls of late. If we look globally to all the markets that started with a medicinal framework, a natural progression dependent on time has led to an adult use market in some description. I don't think that I'm certainly not at liberty to put a timeline on what that is, but what I will say is, given our experience, our network in the industry here in Australia and globally, the opportunity that could arise from that to be able to be capitalized on from Medigrowth would be quite good, considering that we're across the board, licensed, registered to trade, and experienced in the space. I don't see there being a downside for Medigrowth should adult use come into effect in Australia.
And I think on that too, it's the very reason that I think we've got a quite a defendable business model with the registered medicine space as well. At the moment, the special access scheme and authorised prescriber status is I guess, pathways for patient access. Should there be a broadening of that, I guess the argument is that that's dropping down some of the barriers and opening up some higher competition for companies here in Australia, which is very much the reason that we see, moving alongside regulations and evolving with them, but also having that longer term defendable business model, which is really what we continue to say we see the real and major opportunity to be on a global scale, completely defends any competitive risks that might come about from that sort of oversupply and higher rates of competition.
Thanks, Adam. This one's from Paul, and Paul's saying, what are the risks for an Australian producer of cannabis products versus imports from overseas? Can an Australian company maintain low enough costs to remain competitive or a high quality premium? Difficult decisions, I know, but most important for me is to understand how you think about these issues. Paul was saying that, not me. But yeah.
Currently, there is an opportunity from international import into Australia, most definitely. There are companies sitting on a glut of product in some of those jurisdictions, so there are opportunities there. As I said before, having our products manufactured here in Australia, Australian flower, this is an industry that we're trying to support here to be able to bring that competitive cost down, and really, again, pursuing that registered medicine and lowering the bar of the cost access by potentially getting onto the PBS to be able to deliver products at a cost that's more affordable for patients is a key there. But certainly supporting the Australian market is what we're trying to do.
And that has been highly respected, if I can jump in on that too, by both patients and prescribers alike. I know I've had a lot of feedback just over my journey in our distribution sort of conversations where people are looking to support Australian grown product. And in fact, I spoke to a lady yesterday who was a Birchal EOI inquiry, and she said that very thing. How do I access your products if they're Australian made? Currently, I'm utilising an imported product, and I found that very validating to hear that. And it's something that I hear regularly, just in my general day-to-day conversations, more aligned with Medigrowth conversations. But to hear that from someone that's already utilising medicinal cannabis and really wants to support the Aussie industry, I actually found quite inspirational.
Cool. Michael's asked, who are your main competitors? And I think the answer might be, how long is a piece of string there? Yeah, obviously this is a very hot space that we're in right now, and there's a lot of people jumping out and trying to get into the industry. So yeah, like, how do you feel about your competitors, and who do you see your main ones being at the moment?
Look, there are other listed companies and other private companies in our sector, but it's interesting when you actually analyse the operations of all of those businesses, and I've made this point regularly, is that many are working within quite different areas of the supply chain. So you've got your pure play cultivation companies that are looking to service, wholesale bulk supply of flower. You've got manufacturing companies, you've got companies that are purely focused on distribution, and companies like ourselves that have got certainly a strong focus on distribution, but equally some research access and elements to their business as well. And I think, so to come back to the question, who are the competitors there? When you actually do that analysis, yes, there are other companies out there that are focused on research, but they're far fewer than you think. There are a lot of companies that are out there, moving products into market without that commitment to that robust sort of science behind the products. And I guess without even picking out sort of individual companies, when I've done an analysis on some of the ASX listed stocks, for example, the leaders in the industry are actually those that are very focused on drug development, cannabinoid bioprospecting and real world data collection. And for us, that's again, very validating in the direction of the business that we're heading in, because we've got all of those things primed and ready and active. And equally, we have that revenue arm to the business to support some of those things as well.
Thanks, Adam. Do you see yourself collaborating with any competitors in the future by any chance, or, coming together with a few of these big key players to grow the business more?
Absolutely. Any of the Australian current companies at the moment, we're collaborating with manufacturers, with cultivators. I did see a question in the chat. Have we thought about collaborating with canaponics? Certainly, Australian supply is what we're trying to champion at the moment. And collaboration is a big part of our business model. We've gone out from the very start collaborating with universities and educational institutions, and that's no different for other companies out there who obviously need a supply chain to be able to support if they're a cultivator or support if they're a manufacturer. So yeah, we're certainly welcoming all conversations in the collaboration space.
Thanks, Todd. We don't have much longer today, but we do have a lot more questions. So I'll try and power through a few more, and then we'll try and get back to everyone individually and answer some of the top questions that we got today in email comms going out for the rest of the campaign. I guess we've kind of talked to this one already, but Hardy asked, do you have your own farming facilities or do you source from others? And I think we addressed that earlier, but for anyone who missed it.
Yeah, so we are partnering with Aussie cultivation company and manufacturers. So yeah, we don't have our own farm. Part of the Centre of Excellence development is not a commercial cultivation facility per se, but there are some genetics aspirations there as part of that cooperative and commercial research centre that we have proposed down in regional Victoria there. So that may well come in the future, but for the time being, we're really running a very asset-light model, allowing us to scale up and really build momentum on our key initiatives. And there are some amazing collaborations and partnerships and suppliers out there for us to be dealing with. And as Todd said, we're all about supporting the industry. So if there's a supplier there that we can deal with, we'll be talking to them.
Awesome. I like this question from Paul, and it says, with such great organic growth to date, how have you considered the decision to go to a raise? How do you view larger investments from larger investors going forward? So Paul might be asking more specifically, how did you choose crowdsource funding over other investment funding? And yeah, how would you view larger investments from larger investors going forward?
Well, for me, it's been answered in many of the conversations I've had in the past week since we went had the expressions of interest launched last Tuesday. We've fielded a lot of conversations and a lot of questions, and it's absolutely validated our purpose and our mission. And it's equally proven to us that there are a huge amount of people in Australia that are very, very supportive of the direction of the industry broadly, beyond Medigrowth, but also Medigrowth's mission. So trying to, in an industry where we have regulatory oversight and there are some restrictions on advertising, a whole host of things where we are limited in our messaging sometimes, having a whole host of people that can be talking about medicinal cannabis and the potential benefits of utilising medicinal cannabis is very powerful. And I think even in a meeting we had earlier today on another person that I'd spoken to as part of my external engagement with potential investors was that patients in some cases are still seeing a stigma associated with medicinal cannabis, and it's totally shouldn't be there. It's a legitimate medicine. There are people who are having absolutely life-changing effects out of utilising, in some cases, for quite life-limiting indications. So the more people we can get having a conversation about what we're doing and what the industry is doing and how that's changing lives, I think that's very powerful.
And just to add to that, we've bootstrapped this company with a couple of pre-seed investors. So really adding to what Adam just said there, we're wanting to spread the word, and Birchal is a platform that does a great job at getting startups and bootstrap companies out there into the PR realms. And so we greatly appreciate that. So that's another reason why choosing crowdsource funding to really spread the word and bring the herd, hopefully.
Yeah, it's interesting. You know, with a lot of companies who hold raises with Birchal, they do have this crowd of people who like what they're doing and use their products, and it's very much the same here.
Absolutely.
Mara's asked, have you got any studies about, have any of the studies the company has been involved in been published yet or reviewed? And if yes, are you able to link those out?
Not in the clinical side, Mara. So that's probably the opportunity for that will be in October for the interim report from the pediatric autism trial. So happy to sort of work with some engagement on anyone that's interested when those studies are reported. To try and share some of that information. Beyond that, probably that ongoing observational study is the one that's building a data set that I think will be very valuable as we move forward. And again, that's under a Deakin collaboration, so there will be a lot of analysis of that data as we move forward, and happy to share that at the right time.
Thanks. Mara's also asked, what's the average time to market once a clinical trial has been completed and demonstrated the product's benefit to patient? A new product strain / delivery being used for each trial, or is some product being used for different applications?
It's the time to market is variable, very much based on the clinical trial process. But the clinical trials are really a 4-phase clinical trial from beginning to end. So, for example, the pediatric autism trial is in phase 1 and 2 over the course of this year, which is really looking at safety and efficacy of or therapeutic benefit of those particular medicines for that particular indication. And assuming positive results from that phase 2 trial, they would then move into a phase 3, which is really just broadening out the patient numbers, looking at a wider demographic and wider cross-section of patients that then ultimately, again, assuming positive results, that data would be submitted in Australia to the TGA, and there's a process in terms of the registration process to get to hopefully a registered medicine result. So the answer to that is it can be several years in some cases, can be less time in some cases, and often it does have a little bit to do with some of the preclinical work that's been done as well.
Thank you. Sorry, I'm just responding to one question. We'll just finish up with one last question, which is from Rowan, I think, who started off the webinar. So Rowan's asked, indication and market size slide showing the millions of dollars in prescriptions is, how are you going about educating the prescriptors to migrate to prescribing your products over standard pharmaceuticals?
I can take that one. It's it's interesting. There's 2 tiers to how patients are accessing medicinal cannabis. On the one hand, it's a very patient-led conversation. So in a lot of cases, there are patients out there having those conversations with their doctors based really on a broad community engagement where we're seeing more and more people that are talking about medicinal cannabis. So that's the one side. From our side, in terms of what we're doing, we do engage with a number of clinics and GPs and specialists in terms of just keeping them updated with what Medigrowth products are. And probably equally for us moving forward, post-raise, we're really looking to ramp up our education initiatives, have qualified medical science liaison personnel that can be really talking to every doctor in the country about not only Medigrowth products, but medicinal cannabis broadly. And there are a whole host of substitutes. When you look at the traditional prescribing routes of opioids and antipsychotics and a lot of things that are being prescribed for, a lot of the indications that medicinal cannabis is being prescribed for, it is something that can absolutely have a potential for being swapped out with the right education to doctors.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. I think it's important to mention that there will be another investor Q&A session held next week in the evening on a Thursday, 27th of July. So just make sure, if you'd like to attend and keep listening to the conversation around the potential investment opportunity in Medigrowth, then you're welcome to register and attend that session too. We'll try and get back to everyone who has had their questions unanswered, and please make sure that you do make an expression of interest in the Birchal platform so you can stay across all the communications about Medigrowth's upcoming offer, which is opening on Tuesday, 1st of August. Thank you, Adam and Todd, for your insights around your business and, getting everyone a bit more clued in about what's so exciting about Medigrowth. For everyone who attended today, thank you for coming. We'll make the video recording of this webinar or investor Q&A available very soon. As I mentioned, the expression of interest campaign will continue to run for a while longer, and make sure that you stay up to date on all the communications and don't miss out on your opportunity to invest, because this is a big one. We have almost 3,000 people interested so far. So it's really exciting to see all the interest and the traction with Medigrowth.
Thank you, Zoe.
Pleasure.
And to everyone that's joined on the valuable time that everyone squeezed into their day, really appreciate it, and would love to have you on the journey. So if you've got any other questions, please reach out amongst the communication. And Todd and I have certainly committed to try and talk to everyone we can, albeit, as Zoe just mentioned, now with roughly 3,000, we're finding that task is becoming more and more difficult as the days go by, but we'll certainly do our best to make the time to chat to each and every one. And it is very important to us to ensure that there's that open line of communication.
Thank you, Adam. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thank
Zoe. Thank you, guys.